too, as best as possible. Let me use my tripod, but you're welcome to if you need to. My phone's dead, so I can't use it. Well, I can't take it off the charger. So, all right. Yeah, what's going on, Gainesville? It's your boy Jerk Jerkins right here on WMBT 90.1 FM The Beat, and yo, we are hanging out like we do always, man. Today we got a real big special treat for the city, man. Make sure y'all are tuned in by your radios right now. We have Miss Kendra Alberry in the building. Thanks for coming, first of all, man. I was going to read down your whole list of titles, but I want to first just thank you for coming in, Miss Alberry.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, no. Pleasure is all mine. First of all, let me kind of give a brief introduction before I kind of pass it over to you. But you're an author. You're the CEO of Kids and Capes.
Yes.
And a children's advocate, along with other things like being a mom and
Yes.
things like that.
Absolutely.
So can you kind of just give the people a little background on yourself real quick, please?
Yeah, well, I was born and raised in a small town called Crescent City. It's on the other side of Putnam County, past Palatka. One traffic light. And so my husband and I met at the University of Florida when I was pursuing my master's degree a couple years ago. And he's the director of the Kika Civil Claw Planetarium. So parents take your kids out to the planetarium out there at Santa Fe College. And we left the area. We were gone for almost 10 years. And we came back here about 5 years ago. So I call ourselves kind of like transplant. But we're definitely Gators.
Absolutely.
And so... yeah, that's a little bit about myself as it relates to where I live. Right now, I currently live in Alachua. I hear it's called Alachua.
Yeah.
Alachua, something like that. But I live in Alachua, and it's been a pleasure, just being here. And that's a little bit about where I stay. But I love to say I bleed on orange and blue, and I love being here. And Gainesville is and Alachua is an amazing city and county.
Awesome. So, you are the CEO of Kids and Capes among a whole lot of different things that you do.
Yeah.
I just want to kind of, if you can briefly describe some things that you do and you've done, and just the impact that you have on the community, first of all.
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about Courageous Conversations, if you could kind of get into that.
Yes.
And what that's all about.
Great. So Courageous Conversations is a program that we offer through Kids and Capes. Now, Kids and Capes is a nonprofit that works as a catalyst. We serve as a catalyst for business members, community members, as well as organizations to help prevent and raise awareness of childhood sexual abuse, bullying, and illegal drug use early on. And we do that through our advocacy, education, literacy, and early intervention programs. So Courageous Conversations is one of the programs we offer specifically for our middle school and high school students, as well as for their parents. And what we do is tackle tough topics in a courageous way. And so we have a part of those Courageous Conversations for younger kids are through interactive read-alouds using the books that I've written, Don't You Dare Touch Me There, Leave Us Alone, You Mean No Bully, and of course, N-O and I Mean No, Let's Say No to Drugs. And so I am a children's advocate. Kids and Capes is an amazing organization that really works to help kids and families just really prevent sexual abuse, bullying, and illegal drug use. But we do that through education. We train parents, we train kids, we educate them, and just really teach them how to become their own advocates early on.
Right. And you guys just actually had any bit with Courageous Conversations on the 14th, right?
Yes.
Can you talk about that? Was there any breakthroughs?
Yes. Oh man, it was amazing. We that was on Saturday the 14th.
Yes, ma'am.
And this was our first time actually having one in a public forum, meaning outside of an organization. And so we typically offer them at faith-based organizations. That's what we've been doing for the past 2 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And so once we launched Kids and Capes last November, we decided to take them outside and make them public. And so that one, there was about almost 40 people there.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but what brought that on? What made you guys branch out and go to the public?
Because I realized that's where people are. That's where their need. The need is in the community, and not everyone actually will attend a church. And so I just decided, since we are an organization where we want to reach people, our programs are cross-generational and community-based programs. So it was just a no-brainer to just offer Courageous Conversations out in the community.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you say 40 people?
Yeah, we had about 40 people there that were teens as well as adults, some parents. And we just really just kind of tackled tough topics. And, you know, I don't know if you know, my background is in television news producing and reporting.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I had a unique opportunity when I was working in television. I would always see these same stories, whether they're on a national level or local level. And I said, this stuff is preventable. That's really when my wheels started turning.
Really?
I mean, you see these stories about inappropriate behavior between teachers and students, sometimes even in the faith-based community and kids. And I'm like, this stuff is preventable. How is it preventable? You talk about it. And so you just begin to have courageous conversations, and you cultivate relationships with your kids early on. And so there were a lot of breakthroughs. And the whole purpose of those conversations is to help kids and parents become proactive thinkers, not waiting until you get into a situation and try to figure out what you're going to do to address it, but really have a plan of action, have a point of reference for dealing with unforeseen, uncertain, uncomfortable situations.
Yes, ma'am. And this particular event was geared towards middle school and high school?
Yes, it was for middle schoolers and high schoolers, and we encourage parents to come, because what parents don't realize is these are student-led conversations.
Oh, really?
And so they get to hear their kids say the things that they say. I've had some where parents are in another room, and they were like, I think that was my kid saying that.
Wow.
Did my child say that?
Wow.
Yes, and it's really questions like scenarios where, you know, kids end up in these situations, say, for instance, with sexting, or, you know, of course, sending inappropriate pictures using, you know, technology.
Yes, ma'am.
What have your parents said to you about this? You know, should you be giving your cell phone number to a teacher, a coach? You know, do you have limits and boundaries already in place? And so it's really helping to arm kids early on with their voices, but also helping parents to know what kids are thinking.
Right. And I really admire the way that you administer the different methods for different age groups. So let's move right along to the interactive read-alongs, which I'm thinking that is geared towards the younger.
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit and how that all works? Because I really, like I said, I really think it's brilliant the way that you got that set up.
Well, I have to tell you, it was all divinely inspired by God.
Yes, ma'am.
So the interactive read aloud started in 2012 when I released my first book titled Don't You Dare Touch Me There.
Okay.
And Don't You Dare Touch Me There is all about teaching kids about their Don't You Dare Touch Me There zones, and teaching them to set limits and boundaries and to use their voice. So their voice is a part of their superpower. So unlike Spider-Man, who shoots webs, and Superman, who, you know, launches over buildings, their superpower is courage. And so it's teaching kids early on how to say no to things that make them uncomfortable, uneasy, or when they're in uncertain situations. So I teach kids about that tummy thinking. So if your stomach is telling you something not right, if your head's telling you something not right, then you need to get out.
Wow.
And you need to tell a responsible adult.
Let me ask you something real quick about that. What's like the earliest age you notice that these kids are receptive to these lessons here?
Absolutely. We've learned about 2.
Really?
Absolutely. Because the sooner you begin to have courageous conversations about body parts and calling them by name, kids begin to pick it up. And so just like we call the ear, the nose, the mouth, the mouth, is learning about those parts that are not to be touched. Those areas are absolutely private. And so when, you know, we do songs like Don't You Dare Touch Me There, and we point to those there parts and what they are.
Right. Awesome. I really think that's very interesting what you're doing there. So because I kind of skipped over, I guess, the timeline there, but let's go back and talk about Kids and Cakes as a whole, and what compelled you to start it, and you know, because you mentioned before that you come from a corporate background.
Yes.
So what led to that whole transition there, and what made you even start Kids and Cakes?
Well, like I said, my background is in broadcast journalism, and then I moved over into corporate communications, and I was a speech writer. And so I did a lot of PR and marketing, and, you know, after a while, I feel that purpose calls all of us at some point.
Understood.
We're called to our purpose. And so after I had written a whole bunch of speeches for CEOs of companies and leaders, and after I've written 1,000 press releases, I was frustrated. So I began to hit that, what they call a glass ceiling.
Understood.
And I just asked God, I'm like, you know, what you want me to do now?
I saw the conversation you had online.
I'm like, okay, so what you want me to do now? And he said, write books. I was like, wait a minute, hold it, but wait, I don't have enough time and I'm not creative. And ultimately what ended up happening is just my fire just went out in corporate. And I ended up writing my first book, which was my memoir, From Food Stamps to Favor. And so after Food Stamps to Favor, when I was in the last chapter, I wrote Don't You Dare Touch Me There. And so Don't You Dare Touch Me There just really kind of God just really led me on this journey of like self-discovery. So I was a victim of childhood sexual abuse, but I went from being a victim to being a survivor, to being a thriver, and now a conqueror. And I like to talk about the difference between being a conqueror and a survivor.
Okay.
Because when you're a conqueror, you are equipped to turn back and do something about it and create that change that you desire to see in the world. And so I went through my therapy, I went through my counseling, I went to a place in Jacksonville, Florida called Reclaim Global about 3 years ago. And I promise you, my life changed. I could not imagine being on the journey that I am on right now without having gotten that final piece. I like that was the final piece that I needed, because my healing started as I began to share my story. My healing started as I began to become an advocate, because I ultimately, after writing the book, I went on to a television station in Jacksonville. It was the News for Jacks. And they called me a sexual abuse prevention expert, and that scared the bejeebers out of me. I was like, wait a minute. I was saying in my head, like, wait a minute. And so what I ended up doing was I ended up becoming a certified Darkness to Light sexual abuse prevention training facilitator.
And describe that, because it's two different levels there. So can you describe your certification?
Yes,
that's cool.
Absolutely. Well, Darkness to Light is a nationwide organization that specializes in just teaching the 5 steps of preventing sexual abuse. There are a lot of organizations out there that treat it after it happens, but it's one of a few that teaches those 5 steps. And those 5 steps, of course, is know the facts. 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 5 boys will be sexually abused by the time they turn 18. Wow. And a predator can actually abuse up to 400 children before one will tell. Wow. 90% of kids know their abusers. 60% of kids are abused by someone the family knows and trusts. 40% are abused by a stronger, more powerful child. That's the child-on-child abuse.
Really?
Yes, and then 30% of kids are abused by a family member. The second step, of course, is minimize opportunity. Don't leave a child in a situation where they're in an isolated situation, where there's no supervision. 3 is the magic number. 3 trusted adults. That's what I love to say. Step 2, step 3, of course, is talk about it. That's where I really love to come in. That's my job. And then step 4 is recognizing the sign, falling grades, bedwetting, difference in changes in mood and behavior. And then the final step, of course, is react responsibly. Call 1-800-4-CHILD. When you're calling in abuse, it's so important that people understand that you're not the expert and that you are to report the suspicion of the abuse. I mean, there are times when you will know it's abuse and you call, but a lot of people are like, well, I don't know if that's actually, I'm not going to get somebody in trouble. They don't know. The thing,
explain that. Like, not that, but why is that damaging? You know what I mean? The suspicion, and not the complacency behind it just being a suspicion, not having the hard evidence. So I feel like I don't want to get involved. Why is that damaging? Why does that hurt?
Well, there are a couple of reasons. This is what I found myself on my journey. A lot of times people don't report abuse because of where their loyalty lies. They don't want to get people in trouble, but what they don't realize is when you report abuse, that you're actually protecting other children. Remember what I said earlier, an abuser, a predator, can abuse up to 400 kids before one will tell. And we see these social ills again in our society as it relates to teenage pregnancy, mental illness, because that's post-traumatic stress syndrome right there, and through drug use and depression and things of that nature. And of course, I think also the reporting suspicion is there are experts who are trained in forensic interviews, and we have an organization right here in our community, the Children's Advocacy Center. They are the ones, and law enforcement will determine whether or not that happened. But when we report the suspicion of abuse, we actually could be saving a child.
That's what I was really trying to get at.
Yeah.
Okay, because we kind of went on a tangent there. That was really good. Now, what came first, the books or Kids and Capes?
The books came first. The books is how I started this whole journey. The books are actually the foundation for Kids and Capes, because we raise awareness through advocacy work, just like what I'm doing today, through advocacy and awareness, coming on, you having me here to talk about it. And so the book, Don't You Dare Touch Me There, was number 1. Then N-O, and I mean no, let's say no to drugs. I've seen it in my family. You've probably seen it in your family, in our communities. What we don't talk about, we ultimately see again. And a lot of times it's not in a positive light. And so, of course, it was the books that came first, and then Kids in Capes. But it was the books, and then the programs, and then the organization. Because what ultimately happened is Kids in Capes started growing, but I didn't have an official organization. I didn't have an organization. I was even calling it Kids in Capes. Kids in Capes Presents. And then I was like, what am I going to call it? And I was like, duh, I already have the name. And so that's just kind of how it just kind of evolved.
No. That's very awesome. And all this is kind of tied in together. Like, you're doing so many different things. Can you talk about you being a literary coach and how that plays into Kids in Capes?
Yes. Okay, so when I started my journey, I started out with a traditional publisher who kind of helped me along the way. Everything I needed at that juncture of my journey for writing a book, and she was absolutely amazing. Based out in Dallas, Texas, I believe. And so I met my illustrator through her, who I still have a relationship with. And he's helping right now with another book we're getting ready to release real soon this summer. And so I started out with a traditional publisher, and I just kind of learned the ropes.
Nice.
And so now, you know, I help people, I coach people through writing their books and telling their stories. And then I have this also unique opportunity of just helping them through the self-publishing process.
And let me before I forget, let me have you shout out how to access these books. And I'm sure people listening right now, they want to read, they want to know what. So how do we access your work?
Books are available online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Books A Million online. Or you can access them through my website, which is KandraAlberry.org.
Okay.
We're getting ready to roll out kidsincapes.org any day now. We're super excited about that. But
awesome.
Kandra Alberry. Kandra is just like Sandra, but with a K, and Alberry is ALBURY.org.
Awesome. So lastly, if we can talk about Stewards of Children.
Yes.
And the work that you've done there and how we got started and everything there.
Yes. Like I said, after I was called a child abuse prevention expert, I decided that I would become one because I didn't want to be caught off guard. But, you know, but more importantly, I really wanted to arm myself with what I needed to be a better champion for children. And so Darkness to Light really, really drives home the statistics that makes this a reality, you know, in our society that kids and families are actually dealing with, and what we need to do to combat it. And so we do, through Kids in Capes, offer the sexual abuse prevention training through Darkness to Light Stewards of Children. Anyone can take that training. 14 and up can take that training, and this summer we're going to actually offer one of those trainings.
Nice. I was going to ask you about that.
Yes, we're going to offer that training this summer.
All right, so let's move on back more over to child abuse and sexual abuse in general, and just some facts, and because you really laid out a lot of information, a lot of facts, stats that really have drove it home. But what's like some of the most important things that just the average citizen should know to prevent, or just the biggest misconceptions? What can we do to do better?
Absolutely.
On the surface level.
Yeah, I think one of the myths. There's several misconceptions, but one is that women don't abuse children. Like, there's not same-sex abuse. That happens. Women abuse women. Women abuse girls, and men abuse men. I think a lot of times people have in their heads some kind of way think that abuse only happened to little girls. Well, that's not the case. I think also people are unaware of the fact that 90% of kids are abused by someone the family knows. And trust. 90%. And so, I mean, 90% of kids know their abusers. The fact that they know them is not about just stranger danger anymore. About telling kids, you know, don't go with this person, that person. We need to teach them that. But we also need to teach them that it's okay to say no to an adult. If someone's doing something to you that makes you uneasy, we as a society have to start helping kids find their voices. When we have, I like to use this during our Courageous Conversations, Uncle Roy's in our family, which is short for Leroy, just a fictitious name I came up, who comes around and he tickles the kids, and these girls are 12 and 13 years old, and he's still tickling them, and adults are just looking and just saying, oh, he's just being Roy. But we haven't asked her how she feels about that. That is, we should not be forcing our kids to show, you know, compassion and physical touch and things like that. We should actually be at the helm of saying it's okay to say no. And no, that's not disrespectful. It's showing them that they can have a voice early on.
it's so, you're so vulnerable as a child. Like, every
Yes.
adult seems like a giant, and
Absolutely.
you take their word. So it's easy to be trusting to adults.
And that's also cultural too, because
Right.
I grew up in a time where adults had the last word.
Right.
That adults were right.
Correct.
And so when things were happening to me that weren't right, I just felt the adult was going to get the last word.
Absolutely.
So we have to do a lot to change the culture.
All right, and okay, so we've been talking a lot about childhood sexual abuse, which is a major issue in our community as well. But you thought to add illegal drug use and bullying in there too. What brought that? Why the connection there?
Yeah. Because it's something I've dealt with in my family, and I've seen it in our community. As a kid, I was bullied.
Yes.
I hated that. I started getting bullied when I was in elementary school, and research shows that physical bullying, starts in elementary school. It peaks in high school. It drops off. It peaks in middle school, and it drops off in high school. But the verbal bullying continues in high school.
Wow.
And so, although, you go to school with these same group of kids, if you don't speak up early on, if you don't figure out a way, if, your village at your school or in your home doesn't have your back, you're more than likely going to go all the way through school being taunted and bullied. And so, those books are really about, activating that superpower courage to prevent that and to really find that voice to say no. Find that courage to say no.
And I'm quite certain that this is kind of like a big reason that we're seeing a rise in teen suicide. And
Absolutely.
So I really think that I really want to commend you and give you kudos for even stepping in there.
Absolutely.
Okay, so again, I want to ask, what can just the average citizen, the average guy listening to this this radio interview right now, what can they do to support Kids in Case, or what can they do to prevent, maybe something going on in the community? Because I want to say this. There is a reservation, I'd say. And because I got to speak personally here. For me being like just an average guy and speaking to little kids sometimes, I might, I'll give you a scenario like where once I've seen a kid lost sometime in the mall or something, and I know I see the kid crying, but I'm kind of reserved on apprehensive on even to approach, because I don't want people to think that I'm doing, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I want to know, like, what can we do, like, just as average citizens, to prevent, like, if we see something in the community that might not be right, or we even mentioned earlier about you kind of reserved on getting somebody in trouble. Like, what can we, like, just the average person, like, what can they do to kind of support? Like, even if it's not directly, you know what I mean?
Right. There's two things. When I talk to people about childhood sexual abuse and ways we can prevent it, we first have to change the culture. And how we change the culture is we change the mindset.
Yes, ma'am.
And when I think about the mindset, a lot of times people don't report abuse because they were abused themselves.
Right.
And so when you don't know how to unpack it or what to do with it, you just turn a blind eye to it. That's why it becomes normalized.
Yeah.
So
you told Hoppo to beat me.
Absolutely.
Because she was getting beat.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you have to, like I said, I mentioned Reclaim Global. You have to say the buck stops with me. At some point, you just have to say, it happened to me, but it don't have to happen to everybody else. That's right. That's exactly what that is.
Okay.
Another thing, too, is that people just really have to be more courageous and realize that we are the village. What we get in is what we put out.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, what we put in is what we get out. And so really we have to just be vigilant, and just say, I want our kids to be healthy. I want our kids to be strong. I want our community to be stronger.
Right.
And we are the most powerful people in our own communities. Is the beings ourselves that live there.
Right. And the one thing I've noticed, and this is just my opinion, is that even for me, I was born in '86. I was raised in the '90s. Even from then and now, with me raising my own kids, what will fix the situation is us all being a community. And,
absolutely.
But what I've noticed has happened is that we're more isolated now because of this fear. Like, well, I don't know. I don't want my kids out there playing in this neighborhood. When really, we had that communal village theme. That was actually more protective. You know what I mean? Because I know that kid. You know what I mean? So, I really think you're onto something. Like I said, that collective, being on one accord, that whole dynamic, I think, is what is the answer. You know what I mean? That way we can kind of have a defense there.
Yeah, I have to tell you something. I think actually it was last week. My husband and I we're getting ready to purchase a home, and we went to this one neighborhood and met the owner there, and she knew everybody in the neighborhood.
Nice.
Every single person, their job title, and I said that's what community is.
I was gonna say that's a community.
That's what it is. People just don't talk anymore,
exactly.
or for whatever reason we're fearful or whatever it is. But you know what I told my husband? I said that's the neighborhood I want to live in.
Right.
I said, you know why? Because if something happens, she gonna know somebody across the street gonna see something, gonna look out for you if your grass not.
Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so let's talk about. I wanted to ask you because you mentioned earlier about cultural aspects to sexual abuse. So what are there any like direct correlations with sexual abuse in our community, as far as the Black community? Like there's some things that we should definitely look out for more, or you know what I mean?
Well, I have to say this, and this is what I've learned since becoming an advocate. Sexual abuse does not discriminate based on race.
Transcends.
Age, that's right. It transcends race, age, gender, socioeconomic level,
yes, ma'am.
And even in certain arenas, even religion. Because in some places, religious circles don't even see that as an issue.
Wow.
And so I feel we have to really understand our loyalty lies to the children. That's where our loyalty should be, because they are our future.
Right.
Yeah, and so we really, when I think about, the African American community, I'm a part of the African American community.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's why I speak up, because what I realize is if you've never been taught to speak up, you won't.
Yeah.
If you've never seen one who is courageous, you won't be.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
so I desire to be that, to be the one to help change the culture within our community.
And that's why imagery is so important. That we make
Absolutely.
just even someone maybe even listening to this interview or
Yes.
watching you in somewhere that could give them, that could be the spark. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So again, I really want to thank you for on behalf of the community there.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you about this real quick. This is just something we mentioned it the other day when we were recording your spot. The cape.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how I want to hear how you started wearing the cape.
Yes.
The whole theme behind the cape. I know it's definitely gonna have something to do with courage.
Absolutely.
But I just want to know the whole backstory there.
Okay, so I, like I said, I started my journey in 2012, but I didn't get the cape until like mid 2014.
Yes, ma'am.
And because I was like, I feel like I'm telling kids to be courageous, but I don't have anything to represent.
Gotta have that visual.
Right, I need something.
Kids love that.
Yes, and then I'm gonna have to tell you, I turned to Isaiah 1:9. And it says, "For the Lord will give us beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness."
Okay.
And for adults, I see this, my cape, as my garment of praise, but for kids, they see it as a cape.
Nice. Well, hey, I really think that's effective.
Absolutely.
So that's very awesome, man.
And they wear capes during the interactive read-alouds. When I do courageous conversations with teenagers, I put them on them because it takes courage to combat these issues, to even address issues that are often normalized. When you normalize dysfunction, we begin to accept that, and then we have to go back and reverse the culture and undo all of this, and that takes courage.
It's even more work there.
Yeah.
I really think that it's effective in that dynamic, because I mean, once they're putting that on, I'm sure that adds.
Absolutely, kids go
bravery.
crazy. Like, it takes a lot for them to get calmed down. They're jumping everywhere.
Exactly.
And plus, we soar into Superman music, and we sing songs and we dance. But and I always tell them, keep the courage, but return the cape, and that's when all the party goes like south.
Nice. Wait, let's discuss Courageously Blue Tie Gala, which is what we're here. I think we're gonna end with that. But let's definitely get into that. Now, what compelled you to start this gala? And can we get into that and exactly what it is first?
Yes. Well, the Courageously Blue Tie Gala is a celebration of adult survivors and their journeys, and those who soar with us.
Yes, ma'am.
And so it's really a night of special tributes, a night of celebrating, a night of coming out and mingling among heroes, regardless of where they are in their journey. Everyone won't wear a cape like me. Everyone won't go out and do read-alouds like me, but I want to celebrate them. And this is our inaugural fundraiser. One of my board members, which is my pastor, Troy Ramore, he's like, we got to do something. We got to get this ball moving. He said, we're going to, and I said, well,
what church?
The church is called Living Covenant Church.
Nice.
It's based in Alachua.
Nice.
Yeah, Alachua. And It's an amazing church. And so our church is actually our sponsor, our food sponsor, as well as our facility sponsor.
Okay.
So I'm super
got that good
excited.
fried chicken, man.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
It's going to be a lot of really good food at the gala. It's going to be heavy hors d'oeuvres. There's going to be an open bar there as well.
Yeah.
And Pepin Realty is our signature blue drink sponsor.
All right.
So make sure you get your tickets and come out and have a good time.
All right, cool. I want to, if it's okay, if we can I can talk to you a little bit about the event.
Yeah.
You mentioned the blue drink.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have a keynote speaker there.
Yes.
Are we revealing who that is yet?
Yes. I'll go ahead and tell you guys who the keynote speaker is. Oh, the event is on Sunday, April 29th, out at the barn at Rembert Farms. Doors are going to open at 5:30. Tickets are $50 for a single, $75 for two. Or you can still sponsor a table. We have just a few left for $750.
Cool. I was going to ask you about that. I didn't know if you were still taking
we are. Absolutely.
Nice.
So anybody can write your checks, make your checks payable to Kids and Capes, and those proceeds are tax deductible.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
And so you said our speaker. So our speaker is a lady named Kathy Lee Berkowitz.
Okay.
Her background is also in journalism. She's won 17 Florida Press Awards.
Wow.
The Florida Press Association Awards. She's also the author of The Brighter Side of a Darker Thing.
Nice.
I'm super excited about having her. She's absolutely amazing.
Wow, so you definitely getting your money's worth with this.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so you guys also having a silent auction. What are you guys auctioning on?
Oh man, we have giving keys.
Oh, okay.
If you've never heard of giving keys, everybody stop what you're doing. Well, don't turn off the radio. But stop what you're doing and Google giving keys. We have 2-month membership for Gainesville Health and Fitness.
Nice.
No, it's not 2 months. We have two gift certificates to work out for 3 months, Gainesville Health and Fitness. We have some gift certificates to restaurants. We have painting with a twist. We're going to add our own twist. We have a lot of amazing, jump passes for Get Air. Like for a family of 4. We have Adam's Ribs Barbecue. You
guys are doing it.
Yeah, we're doing it. Yes, we're doing it.
Live entertainment too. Who you guys got?
We
got
have
live band?
Yeah, well, actually, we have DJ Eric Lopez is going to be on the ones and
Elo.
twos.
You got Elo up there.
Yes,
Okay.
he's going to be on the ones
I didn't
and
know
twos.
that.
Do they still do ones and twos? I'm dating myself.
Well, Elo is so old that he probably does.
He's still on one and two.
But I'm just joking with him. But Elo is one of the guys who actually knows the actual real ones and twos. So respect to him.
Yes.
I was just joking with him about it being old. Yes. So to answer your question. Also, I want you to describe the attire because you guys can't just come in there with your Timberlands.
No, don't wear Timberlands. Don't wear shorts. Don't do that. But it is a blue tie gala. Our original vision was for people to dress up really, really nice. And, to wear your cocktail dress, ladies. And for guys to wear a tuxedo.
Yeah.
Or it's prom season. We watching our kids see all these pictures on Facebook.
It's always fun.
Clothes,
it's always fun
up.
to dress up. Man.
Yes, and so if you don't have a tuxedo, don't go out and rip one. Just wear a suit and a tie.
Okay.
Look real nice because it's going to be a blue carpet.
All right.
So there's a courageously blue carpet where you'll take photos, and we have a young lady by the name of Katie. She's coming from Lake City to come and take some photos, and the photos are going to be on our Kids and Capes Facebook page as well as on our Instagram. So make sure you like the Kids and Capes Facebook page and Instagram page.
Shout out the social media handles real quick.
Yes, social media, Facebook, Kids and Capes. And then, of course, Instagram, Kids and Capes, and we are on Twitter as well.
Kids and is it all one word?
Yes,
or?
It's all one word.
Okay,
Kids,
cool.
the letter N, Capes,
nice.
CAPES. Or you can follow me, and I'm going to encourage you to like it too.
Please do.
Yeah.
So did you want to get out your social media stuff real quick?
Yes, it's Kendra Alberry. Really simple.
Your website too.
Yes, it's www.Kendra, KANDRA, Alberry, ALBURY.org.
Cool. So, Kendra, is there anything we didn't discuss we should cover? Any tidbits that we need to?
Yeah, April is National Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month. And this Sunday, April 29th, the fourth Sunday of every April, is National Blue Sunday. So when you go to church on Sunday or to wherever you go, whether it's the Walmart or church, make sure you wear blue.
Yes, ma'am.
And say a prayer for abused children and those who rescue them.
Right. So, anyone last word, any advice out there, any tips we need to give the public out there real quick?
Yes, see something, say something, suspect something, report it. Thank you, and be courageous.
Well, hey, I really want to thank you for coming by. I want to thank you for the work that you do in the community. Again, I can't give you enough credit. And Yeah, thanks again for Kids and Cakes. Everybody out there, make sure you go out to Remember Farms in Alachua on Sunday from 6 to 8.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure we go online to pick up tickets where
Yes, you can actually get tickets through my website, or you can go to Eventbrite, and all you do is search Blue Tie Affair, and you can get tickets right there.
There it is. Hey, y'all keep it locked right here, man. WMBT 94.1 FM The Beat. It's your boy Jerk Jenkins right here on the Jerk Jenkins Show. I got Kandy Alberry in the building, y'all. Don't go nowhere, y'all. Hey, I think we're done.
Thank you.